pretty important part. It confuses lots of people, including myself most of the time. But we will explain what this GANS is, and then what the nanomaterials and nanocoating is. And these are the two key stages of production, items, things in the delivery of the plasmatic energy fields for all the applications of this technology. So it's important to try to not necessarily understand them, but understand what they're doing, at least, not where they're coming from. Also, there's still some confusion in the world and in here and in England. What's the difference between plasma that the physicists talk about and the plasma that we're talking about? Which was just that first section, if you remember, the free plasma that Mr. Kesh talks about. I wish he hadn't used the word, because we think of blood plasma, we think of arc light, neon lights, that sort of thing. This plasma is beyond the metaphysical. It's the transition state of matter and it's the principal state of matter. So it's a different field strength. It's the invisible stuff to us. Rudolf Steiner called it the etheric formative forces of nature. That is one level of this free plasma, which I think would be maybe this transition plasma state, where it's a field of information behind the scenes, really. It's behind the scenes to us. Not to Steiner, perhaps, not to Mr. Kesh, but to us it is. And you can also imagine, if you imagine the electrical plasma that we're used to in physics, conventional physics, you cannot make a rabbit out of conventional physical plasma. But you can make a rabbit out of this free plasma, because it is there to be organised into whatever form you want. Sai Baba did this, you know about him. I was there when he just shown some devotees. They kept one English, it had to be in English. He said, I don't believe you. What are these miracles? I want you to make, he said, okay, what do you want? And she said, I want a monkey. So he said, fine. And he put his hands together, he pulled them apart, and a monkey appeared. Even though I was witnessing the people secondhand who see this. And this monkey was manifested. Because his field strength was connected to all the levels of the universe, to that principle, light, which will respond to any intention. His intention was clear, focused, and correct for a monkey. So a monkey manifested in this matter strength. Fine. To us, that's incredible. And to this lady, it was astounding. And this monkey ran around the room for the next quarter of an hour while he did the rest of the interview. And then he said, remember, everything that's created has to be dissolved. Mag and grav have to find balance. The lady said, no! That's my monkey! And he said, can somebody bring me a banana? Somebody brought a banana, he put it on his palm. The monkey, of course, replied to the magnet and got the monkey. He put his hands on top, the monkey disappeared. Yeah. So that free plasma is the origin of stuff. And that's an important segue into this, because this free plasma and these plasmatic fields respond to intention and consciousness, which also makes quite a lot of technology subjective, because you cannot measure the effect of consciousness so well yet, although these scientists have seen, in a way, with the photons of light manifesting as the DNA. They could probably do another experiment where they put the thought form of DNA into the thing and then the photons will manifest around the thought form, which is what we do all the time. So it's trying to expand the field strength, if you like, into our own reality to understand how that's all working. Although we kind of know it is working, because we don't get the mechanisms, we kind of maybe don't believe it does work. So it's just this nice infinity loop of learning, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. So what is GANS? GANS is defined as gas in a nano-solid state. But we could also call it elements, the elements in a nano-solid state. So it's a state of transition matter. It's like liquid plasma. If you can imagine sort of slightly magical alchemical solution, it's substance. There's some at the back. You can see in lunchtime, and some in some pots. And you can tip the vase and see how it flows and doesn't. It's kind of got anti-gravity in it. It doesn't respond directly to gravity. It kind of floats. It's very etheric. It's very numinous. It's really nice. It's lovely stuff. And it's a medium that's bridging the two realms, right, between the utterly invisible and the physical matter state for us. And there's another little. So we're familiar with this. These are the new realm. Nano science doesn't know about. That's the nanos, the monatomic structures where atoms are separated in nice little rows, like graphene. And these nanoparticles also have superconducting capacities, and we'll talk about them in another bit. Anyway, we make those into GANs, and then GANs has these plasma fields, which is what we're going to describe. There's another little anecdote. It's this Irish vicar who's actually in What the Bleak Do We Know, I can't remember his name, but he's got 7 magravs in his house, 7 reactors, which isn't relating to this, but so he knew about the technology, and he heard about a boy who was in class at school in year 8 or whatever, a 9-year-old boy, and the physics teacher was saying, right, today we're going to talk about physics and the states of matter. And he said, no, there are 3 states of matter. There's matter state, liquid state, and gas. And the boy put his hand up and said, please sir, no, there are 3 more. And the teacher said, oh, what are they? And he said, nano, GANS, and plasma. And the teacher, to his credit, didn't say, oh, that's rubbish, sit down, I'll talk to you later. He said, that's interesting, where did you hear that? And they kind of discussed it. Listen out, maybe they're more open-minded. That was really cool. And Mr. Koshki, these sort of clips from kids' workshops where he's trying to teach kids about the new way to conceive of the states of matter. And kids are open to it. And so it's quite natural. He goes up with the idea there's nano, there's GANs, and there's plasma. There's energies beyond what we can see, and we can work with them visibly. Actually, I quite like this picture. That's at the back, I think, of these. A little kind of hump in the GANs. I didn't know why that happened, but it kind of stayed there. It's expressing something in this environment. So GANs, you can imagine, as a plasma bubble, like a little sunshine, consisting of magnetic and gravitational fields, but a field strength that's slightly stronger than the weakened ones we perceive as matter state. So it's a stronger field, it's got more power, hence its power to create. But because of that power, it's more invisible and more unreachable. But as a GANs, we are having to liquid state where we can see it. And it radiates energy according to its frequency. So whatever frequency, however it's made, it will have a certain frequency and sort of flavour or recipe, and it will radiate that information. It's a field information radiator. And it comes from the process of nanocoating materials. We'll discuss that process later. So it's like little sunshine. They're like little suns, and they're radiating orbs of light. So we place them here. It's a charge field with a charge radius that our senses interpret as matter. So we're still interpreting GANs as matter, but actually it's holding a lot more frequencies. We're just altering the pitch. So matter state we're here. We're tightening the coil into transition matter state. And GANs bridging between that and plasmatic free matter state. Don't worry if you don't get it. It's so it manifests from a field strength that science has not recognised before, the plasmatic magnetical gravitational fields. This new view of matter requires a rethink of conventional knowledge, which is right, so it's such an exercise, really. But I just didn't imagine they're just invisible, higher frequency materials, different octaves above what we can sense normally. And so, how do we use them? Just briefly, there are different types of GANs. There are only 3 types that we work with here. This CH3, which is it's called CH3. It's got 3 atoms of carbon and 3 hydrogen in the nano state. So they're all separate from each other. So it's not a molecule. They're all separate from each other, and they're radiating the frequencies of carbon, hydrogen, which is tritium in the plasmatic sense as well. And these frequencies connect with our blood system and our energy system. They are magnetical, they're radiating energy, which feeds us energy and feeds our blood and feeds by the CO2 and the CuO. CuO is more of a gravitational energy, as they explain it. It's more organising and drawing in. And that connects with our physical matter state body, and also it's a sterilizer. It has a sterilising effect. It's antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral, because it draws energy out of these energy systems and locks it, so they have to release their form. and in the middle is the CO2 stroke, it's also zinc. So carbon dioxide and zinc oxide, which basically the field strengths of carbon, oxygen, and zinc and oxygen, are connecting directly to our nervous system, which is operating at a higher octave to our physical system, and connecting with our emotional body, which is at a higher octave than our physical body as well. So they're reaching up through the octaves of our being. And there's actually an iodine GANS which connects to the frequency of our soul strength, the principal light of the soul. It's like these elements are kind of step-down transformers at the same frequencies, but at the same notes at a lower frequency. It's think the octave. We've got high C up here, our soul is high C, and that high C down in matter state manifests as iodine. It's that frequency step down into an element called we call iodine. And the same with the zinc. The highest pitch, the zinc is our spiritual body and our emotional body. And step that down into matter state, that same note is represented as zinc as an element. And that links into music as a therapy. The note of whatever it is connects to our emotional body. The colour of whatever it is connects to our emotional body. They are all harmonics of the same frequency or quality, if you like. So these plasmas are going further and further up the scale. And then we've got organic GANs, which are from foods. So we can actually break foods down into their nano state and then transform them into plasmatic field generators using some of the CO2 GANS waters. And have I done a picture of that? There's a way of conceiving that now, is that we're making nanomaterials from top down as well as bottom up. From top down, we're taking the field strengths from the principal field and manifesting them down into GAN state. And with the organic stuff, we're breaking down organic matter state materials, and tightening their energy fields back up into GAN state. So we're kind of re-energizing the matter up into GANs, and we're weakening the principal light down into GANs. So it becomes a bridge from both realms. It meets in the middle, if you get that. Have you got a question? Yeah, fruit and veg, yeah. Let's say even matter state. You can break down an element, magnesium, into a GANs by strengthening its field and tightening it up into a GAN state. So working with matter state up, expanding its field so it can be used in its field strengths, not in its matter state. So how we make the CO2, it's electrolysis, but it's not electrolysis. It's kind of electrolysis, but it's not. It's spiritual electrolysis. You're working with, you've got the nano-coated copper plate on the left, which is the superconductor. We'll cover nano. It's a nano-coated copper plate, and we've got a zinc plate. And they're in saline water. The salt water is the medium that this helps these energies manifest. What we're doing is creating a magnet. The atomic mass of zinc is 65, which is like the field strength. The magnetic strength of zinc is 65. The atomic mass of nano-coated copper is 59, I'll tell you why later, which creates a deficit of 6. So it's setting up a kind of potential difference of 6 in field strength, or magnetical strength. And that's an invisible field. And that is attracting the element of carbon, which is field strength 6 in matter state, from the air into the solution, and combining it with the oxygen in the water to form carbon dioxide in a nano state. And it's in there. There's a whole science to this which is extraordinary, and it's really very hard to get to grips with right now. But it's just, we're creating the conditions for elements to manifest from the ether, from their archetypal state into matter state, and combine with other matter state atoms like the oxygen, but it creates this GANs. And there are really very hundreds, thousands of different recipes, but that's the main one, let's say. Let's just stick to the main one, carbon dioxide. So the carbon comes from this magnetical difference into the solution. And so this carbon and oxygen, this carbon dioxide, represents the perfect note of these elements in this condition. So it has a self-organizing energy field. It's completely coherent in relation to its matrix. It is pure carbon, pure oxygen. And everything is created from magnetic fields according to its blueprint. So that's the carbon, the oxygen. In the physical body, any deviation from this template manifests as pain or disease, so an imbalance. So if we bring the perfect note, here we are. If our body is out of key, if our body is mostly carbon and oxygen, or if it's out of key, we need the perfect note because we're singing out of tune. We're like this. So we bring the reference note, which would be the GANS. The GANS is providing the reference note for our body to know what proper carbon and oxygen are meant to be resonating at, what frequencies, and it starts to bring the out of balance into balance. Okay? So whatever element I'm talking about, we've got the CO2 GANS. So it's the little energy orb of CO2 GANS radiating into the body. Our body's 83% of these, and the other 20% are just the hydrogen and nitrogen. So between these four, we've got most things. And it's bringing that balance. We've got another, yeah. So they radiate, and they just bring that balance. If there's too much energy in here, it will be balanced by the grav, and so on. Gravitational will be attracting, magnetical is repelling. And they also respond to intention because they're in this field of emotion and mental and spiritual. If we have an intent for our body, we can ask the plasma to do what it needs to help us. And the same with our power generators. They're being given an instruction to create power out of the plasma. And with agriculture, the plants will pull in field strengths that you're giving them in the plasma fields as well. That's this afternoon. And the GANS materials are in, as in the videos, in kind of pouches, in sponges, or test tubes, and those are patches again. There are different ways of just carrying them in sponges or test tubes, so you've got the frequencies there. And then finally, just the nano coating part. We use nano coating materials to make the GANS and to conduct the magnetic gravitational fields or the plasma fields. So copper, in its matter state, is tightly packed atoms, and there. And that's an atom, that's the plasma, of course, that's the pizza. You've got the three fundamental fields, the principle, the transition, and the matter state, all those frequencies, all in one atom, but they're all combined, and we're perceiving the matter state of them. If you heat them with fire, or apply a caustic solution, which is hydrogen, NaOH, sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide. It's a very, very strong, I think, gravitational field. It draws the atoms out from the plate into into kind of a freer state, and then into an individual atomic state. This is better for you. So the atoms are drawn out because they change polarity when they're drawn out by the heat process or the caustic process. To become negative, the copper plate is normally positive, so they're drawn back to the plate, but because they've got the same electrical potential, they also keep each other spaced apart, these negatively charged copper atoms. So they create a space, a new lattice, and this lattice is perfectly ordered. And because it's got expanded space between it, it allows other materials to flow through, which is the plasmatic fields. So these more invisible fields are able to flow through these nanostructures, and so they're conducted. But electrical fields in their matter state cannot. So these nanomaterials are highly insulative to electrical fields, but not to the plasmatic fields because they're in a higher field strength. They're able to pass through the matter state with no problem. A bit like ghost through walls. You know, ghost is just in a higher frequency state, and so matter doesn't mean anything to it. It's in a transition state. So these plasma fields are the same. They can pass through between these atoms quite easily, and then they will be guided by the nanomaterials to do what is needed. A nice picture of the blackened coils. Now they're black, not because it's carbon, although there are layers of graphene involved as well. It's mostly the copper atoms just in the suspended state, and other little ones in between, some oxides of copper as well. But the black is because when you separate the physical matter enough, the light is absorbed. It's not reflected back, so it's absorbing the light. And you need about 30 or 40,000 layers of these atoms
to look black. But it's still nano-coated. If there are 10,000, you just can't see it. But the deeper the better, because the deeper this layer of regularly spaced atoms, the better, because you've got more volume for the fields to flow through. So you generate the GANs quicker that way. So on the wire, here we are. They're kind of pushed off with the heat of the caustic, then they're attracted back and they deposit themselves as a beautiful ordered coating. And in conventional science, they make graphene, but at extremely high temperatures in extremely complex laboratories. And Mr. Kesh has found a way of doing it in the kitchen. Now, I don't know why that's the case. I don't know why science hasn't kind of recognized this, but it works. And it's been happening in woks in China for years. You've been cooking the same wok all the time. You're actually nano-coating the wok through this heat process of the metal. As you're creating little nano-coated lining to your wok, and so your cooking is actually able to absorb the plasmatic fields around from the environment, and so your food is better. So naturally, the natural ways of cooking are good for you until you burn it. So nanoparticles, so we can just imagine they're pulling in, the nanoparticles are like little magnets. They're pulling in the surrounding plasmatic fields and they're pushing them out again. So they're like helping the fields to flow through a system. So compare that with GANs. The GANs atoms, well, plasmas, the GANs plasmas are operating more like the miniature suns. So they're radiating their frequencies and field information outwards. And you put them on a nanomaterial. The nanomaterial will absorb these fields and amplify and re-radiate them. So that's why it's very good in the power units. It radiates slightly different frequencies of field. And it's good in the health units as well, because it's just amplifying the effect of the plasma fields that the GANs carries. So they're sending fields out. The GANs are radiating fields, then that black particles are sucking them in and pushing them along the line, transmitting them. Nearly there. We are there. So back to the feminine and the masculine. The magnetical polarity is the energy traveling outwards from a system. It's the feeling, the expressive. It's not the feeling, that's more the other way. It's the expressive, the centrifugal, the northern part, the north-seeking, the unpacking, the counterclockwise, and the warming state. It's the expansive state. And the gravitational is the implosive, rational, ordering, conjugating, centripetal, all these words we have for these qualities of elements. And so everything has one or the other of these qualities, and then the rest of life is just trying to find the balance between them. And if these qualities are coming from a GANs, they are the archetype, as we've said, and so they are bioactive, they are self-organizing, it's a coherent system, so it is that reference note, it's providing that key note, which is in balance. So it's bringing the piano back in tune, if you like, bringing the body back in tune, the environment back in tune, the pollution back in tune, so it's used for decontamination as well. We won't really have time to go into all the other applications. We'll be here all day, well, a week. So now you get a plasmatic sandwich, which is there. So we'll cover a little bit about how the food is made into nanostate, and you can feed from that, and then how it works with plants, with health, and with power.